The Tyrians had always believed that the galaxy was a place of endless opportunity. For thousands of years, their ships had drifted between stars, trading knowledge and technology, learning from other civilizations, and sharing what they had in return. They were a gentle species, tall and fragile, with pale, translucent skin and eyes that glimmered like distant moons. Their minds were sharp and their curiosity unbounded. They never sought war, never desired conquest, but the galaxy had no patience for gentleness. The first warning had come from the Council of Elders on Althuria, a massive ringworld orbiting a dying star. The Council had been a powerful political body in the sector, and their words carried weight. "Your people are too weak," they had said. "Too slow to adapt. You cannot compete. You cannot survive." The Tyrians had tried to argue to explain their ways, their knowledge, and their willingness to work with others. But the Council had dismissed them with a single gesture and a threat: leave the sector or be ignored. It had been only the beginning. Across the galaxy, the same pattern repeated itself. Systems that had once welcomed the Tyrians now closed their doors. Trade networks ignored their messages. Starships turned away from their ports. In some cases, entire fleets of other species had blocked Tyrian ships, forcing them to retreat into the cold emptiness of space. Wherever they went, they were treated as if they did not exist, as if their history, their skills, and their very lives were irrelevant. The Tyrians had not understood it at first. Their nature was to trust, to cooperate, to believe that intelligence and reason would be recognized and respected. They could not grasp why strength, aggression, and dominance were valued over knowledge and kindness. But the galaxy had shown its answer again and again. Tyrians were fragile. Tyrians were slow. Tyrians were useless in the eyes of the powerful. And now they were alone. Their ships floated silently through the dark void between stars, a small armada of pale silver vessels that seemed almost to glow against the black. Life support systems worked at minimal levels, food supplies were rationed, and their engines, once capable of incredible speed, now hummed weakly. Each day was a struggle. Each day, hope grew thinner. The elders of the Tyrians had sent messages, desperate pleas, to anyone who might listen. Some responses came, but they were only words, hollow and unhelpful. No one would risk anything to save the Tyrians. Captain Lyra Nethil stared at the holographic display in front of her, her long fingers hovering over the controls but not touching them. The display showed the nearby systems, most of them empty, most of them indifferent. A soft hum filled the command deck of her ship, the Luminaris, as the engines maintained a slow, steady course. Lyra's mind wandered, as it often did these days, to the worlds they had left behind, to the families who had been scattered across space, hoping, praying that someday someone would care enough to answer. "We've received another transmission," said Gerald, her communications officer, his voice low and weary. "From the sector near the Orion Rift. It's unusual. Prepare for assistance." They were distant, almost mythical to the Tyrians, far from their known space, and yet here they were, speaking directly to them, offering help. "Humans," she whispered, almost to herself. "Are they serious?" Could a species known for such boldness really care enough to respond when the rest of the galaxy had turned its back? For the first time in years, a spark of hope flickered in her chest. The days that followed were tense and filled with anticipation. Every signal was checked, every star scanned for approaching ships. The Tyrians prepared as best they could, cleaning what remained of their equipment, repairing the older ships, rationing the last of their supplies. But despite the fear that this might be another cruel trick, the fleet moved forward with cautious optimism. And then one morning, the horizon of stars changed. A fleet of human ships appeared, sleek and robust, moving with confidence and precision. They bore no weapons, at least none that the Tyrians could detect from this distance. Their lights shone brightly, almost warmly, in the darkness of space. Lyra's breath caught. She had never seen anything like it. The humans approached with a sense of purpose, not aggression. They matched the Tyrian fleet's slow pace, adjusting their trajectory to fall in line with the fragile silver ships. There was a rhythm to their movement, a silent communication that spoke of experience, of understanding. When the first human ship came within visual range, Lyra activated the external viewer. The hull of the vessel gleamed, a clean design that balanced utility and strength. A message came through immediately, direct and calm. "Do not be afraid. We are here to help. Follow our guidance and you will reach safety." The human fleet led them through a narrow field of drifting asteroids, guiding the Tyrians with care and precision. The Tyrian ships, unused to such coordination, almost faltered in some areas, but the humans were patient, circling back, adjusting their paths, ensuring no one was left behind. Lyra watched in awe. Every maneuver showed thought, skill, and an almost uncanny sense of timing. These humans were not just strong, they were careful, and in that carefulness they carried respect. As they traveled together, the Tyrians began to communicate with the humans more directly. The translators worked, and the humans' words were simple, clear, and encouraging. "You are safe now. We will provide food and shelter. You are not alone anymore." The Tyrians had known despair, had lived through endless rejection, had faced the silent judgment of the galaxy. And now, someone was offering hope, not for power, not for gain, but simply because it was the right thing to do. Lyra thought of her ancestors, of the generations who had ventured into space with the belief that understanding and knowledge would be enough. She thought of the countless doors that had slammed in their faces, the countless times their voices were ignored. And yet here they were. Someone had listened. The journey continued, slow but steady. Along the way, Lyra and her crew observed small but telling signs of human ingenuity. Drones repaired damaged ships on the fly, automated systems coordinated the movements of dozens of vessels, and small pods delivered food and medical supplies precisely where they were needed. Every action, no matter how small, carried a lesson. Humanity thrived not just on power, but on care, on creativity, on thinking for others. By the time they reached the safe haven that the humans had prepared, a massive space station on the edge of a habitable system, the Tyrians were exhausted but alive. Their relief was palpable. They had survived the rejection of the galaxy, and now, for the first time in memory, they were truly welcomed. As the Tyrians docked their ships and set foot on the human station, Lyra felt a deep sense of gratitude. She turned to look at the humans who had led them here. They were not the most advanced in every way, not the fastest, not the strongest, but they were extraordinary in the ways that mattered most. They were brave. They were kind. They were relentless in their compassion. Lyra realized something that would stay with her forever. The galaxy might reject many, might judge based on strength or fear, but humanity chose differently. Humanity chose to help, and in doing so, they reminded the Tyrians that even in the vast, cold reaches of space, there was a place where they belonged. For the first time in a long time, the Tyrians felt hope, not as a fragile dream, but as a tangible reality. The galaxy had turned its back on them, but humanity had opened its doors. And that difference, small as it might seem, was enough to change everything. The Tyrians could hardly believe their eyes as they stepped off their ships onto the human station. The place was enormous, built with careful precision yet designed to feel welcoming, not sterile. Soft lights lined the corridors, and walls glowed with warm colors that shifted slowly, as if breathing. Humans moved through the hallways with purpose but not haste, greeting the newcomers with smiles and words of reassurance. There was no fear, no judgment, no hostility, only help and kindness. Lyra Nethil felt her heart lighten as she followed her crew along the main corridor. The humans were unlike any species the Tyrians had met before. They were not perfect. Some were tall, some short, some wore thick clothing, while others moved lightly in the air-conditioned environment. Yet every human seemed to carry a quiet confidence, a sense of care for the people around them. Even as the Tyrians walked among them, they did not feel awkward or unwelcome. A human approached Lyra and bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that the Tyrians quickly understood. "Captain Nethil," he said in clear, basic speech, "welcome. I am Commander Elias. We will make sure your people are safe, fed, and cared for. Please follow me." There is much to see. Beds had soft, cushioned surfaces that adjusted to their fragile bodies. Food dispensers provided meals tailored to their nutritional needs. There were water stations, sanitation units, and even small gardens that produced fresh fruits and vegetables. For the Tyrians, who had survived on ration supplies for months, this felt like paradise. In the following days, humans taught the Tyrians how to navigate life on the station. They learned to use the environmental systems, communicate with station computers, and manage basic tools that had been provided. The humans did not rush them or force them to conform to human ways. Instead, they offered guidance and encouragement, letting the Tyrians move at their own pace while quietly making sure no one was left behind. For many Tyrians, the human approach was astonishing. In their experience, most species expected the weak to adapt immediately or face punishment. The humans were different. They listened. They observed. They adjusted their methods to meet the needs of others rather than forcing everyone into one system. Lyra marveled at their patience, wondering how a species could combine strength and kindness so naturally. Among the Tyroleans, curiosity began to grow. Children who had spent most of their lives confined to ships now ran through the domes, laughing as they touched the plants, played with simple machines, and interacted with human children. Adults explored the station, asking questions about human culture, technology, and history. The humans responded openly, sharing knowledge without arrogance or condescension. Every answer came with encouragement to learn more, to experiment, to explore. Lyra spent hours in the human archives, examining data about Earth, its people, and the species' past struggles. She learned about humans' survival through adversity, their persistence in the face of disasters, and their willingness to help those who could not help themselves. She saw stories of humans rescuing stranded aliens in distant sectors, sometimes at great personal risk, simply because they believed it was the right thing to do. "It is remarkable," Lyra said to Elias one day as they walked along a viewing deck overlooking the station's docking area. "Your species survives because of its adaptability. But more than that, you survive because you care for each other and for others. I do not understand how you manage it. Sometimes it comes from the choice to do the right thing, even when it is difficult." And their words carried the weight of experience, not theory. Life on the station settled into a new rhythm. Tyroleans began to recover physically and emotionally from the months of hardship. Medical teams monitored their health, providing treatments for minor illnesses, fatigue, and stress. Scientists from both species began sharing ideas, discussing techniques and technologies. The Tyroleans were impressed by human ingenuity, machines that repaired themselves, automated systems that coordinated fleets of ships, and even programs that helped teach languages and skills to newcomers. In turn, the Tyroleans offered knowledge that the humans did not possess. They shared techniques for energy conservation, star mapping methods that were more precise in certain regions, and unique chemical compounds used for medicine. Humans listened eagerly, asking questions and encouraging experimentation. It was not a competition. It was collaboration, a shared effort that strengthened both species. Not all Tyroleans adapted quickly. Some were hesitant, fearful of change after months of rejection and isolation. Lyra made it her personal mission to reach out to those who struggled. She organized small gatherings where humans and Tyroleans could meet in quiet settings, away from the chaos of the station's busy corridors. There, they shared stories of home worlds, adventures in space, and dreams for the future. Slowly, fear gave way to curiosity, and curiosity to confidence. Outside the station, humans continued to assist the Tyroleans' fleet. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair damaged ships, install new systems, and make the vessels safe for future travel. Tyroleans observed the work, learning techniques and asking questions. Some even joined the teams, contributing their own skills and knowledge. Every successful repair was celebrated, not as a sign of competition, but as a shared victory. Lyra often found herself standing on observation platforms, watching the stars and thinking about the galaxy beyond. She knew the Tyroleans' journey was far from over. Other species would continue to judge them, continue to reject them. But she also knew something new. They were not alone anymore. Humanity had proven that compassion, intelligence, and courage could exist in one species. And with humans by their side, the Tyroleans felt they might survive, even thrive, where once they had only feared. One day, a small human child approached her, holding a simple device that projected tiny holograms. The child pointed to the stars beyond the station. "Do you want to see your home?" the child asked in basic speech, simple yet full of curiosity. Lyra nodded, a smile spreading across her face. "Yes," she said. "We want to see what we have lost and maybe learn how to return one day." It was a quiet moment of discovery, a mixture of memory and hope. Tyroleans could see where they had been rejected, but also where they might return, stronger than before. In the evenings, the station held gatherings where humans and Tyroleans could share meals, music, and stories. The sounds were different, but not alien. The Tyroleans began to understand human humor, human courage, and human creativity. They laughed, learned, and for the first time in a long while felt at home. Lyra walked through the domes one evening, watching the children play and the elders discuss ideas with their human counterparts. She felt a deep sense of awe. The galaxy had judged the Tyroleans harshly, had turned its back on them, and yet here they were, alive, learning, and thriving. All because one species, humans, had decided to act when no one else would. She thought about the future. Tyrians and humans would face challenges together. There would be new lessons, new fears, and perhaps even new enemies. But the foundation had been laid, a partnership built on trust, compassion, and the belief that doing the right thing mattered more than power or politics. The Tyrians were learning what the humans already knew. Survival was not just about strength. It was about connection, courage, and the willingness to help, even when it seemed impossible. And for Lyra, watching her people begin to heal, she realized something profound. The galaxy might have rejected them, but humanity had chosen them. Not for politics, not for profit, not for fame, simply because it was right. And that choice, that single act of courage and care, had changed everything. The stars beyond the station twinkled quietly, indifferent yet beautiful. But inside the station, the Tyrians felt a warmth they had not known in years. They were not lost. They were not alone. And for the first time, hope was no longer fragile. It was alive, strong, and growing, nurtured by the humans who had welcomed them when the rest of the galaxy had turned away. Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in the strange, comforting sense of the station. She smiled. Tomorrow would bring new lessons, new challenges, and new discoveries. But tonight, she allowed herself to feel gratitude, wonder, and a quiet joy. They had survived the darkness, and now they had found light. The Tyrians had settled into life on the station, yet many of them still felt the weight of the galaxy's rejection pressing on their minds. They had been saved, yes, and humans had welcomed them, but survival alone was not enough. Their species had long valued knowledge, understanding, and contribution. Now they wanted more than safety, they wanted purpose. Humans seemed to sense this quietly, without judgment, offering opportunities to explore, learn, and grow. Lyra Nethel began each day by walking through the common areas of the station, observing the interactions between humans and Tyrians. She was fascinated by how naturally the two species were beginning to communicate and cooperate. Some Tyrians still struggled with human speech, relying on basic translations, while others had already begun picking up phrases and gestures, their soft voices and luminous eyes showing wonder and excitement. Humans, in turn, were patient teachers, never rushing, never mocking, always encouraging exploration. In one dome, a group of young Tyrian engineers gathered around a human technician, learning to repair small modules used in the station's energy systems. The humans had devised a system of interactive holograms that guided the repairs step by step, but the Tyrians added their own methods, combining careful precision with innovative techniques. The room was filled with laughter and animated discussion as human and Tyrian minds blended, creating solutions that neither species could have conceived alone. Lyra watched from the doorway, a small smile on her face. This is the way forward, she thought. We are learning, not just surviving, and in learning we become stronger. Some were hesitant, fearful of change after months of rejection and isolation. Lyra made it her personal mission to reach out to those who struggled. She organized small gatherings where humans and Tyrians could meet in quiet settings, away from the chaos of the station's busy corridors. There, they shared stories of home worlds, adventures in space, and dreams for the future. Slowly, fear gave way to curiosity, and curiosity to confidence. Outside the station, humans continued to assist the Tyrians' fleet. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair damaged ships, install new systems, and make the vessels safe for future travel. Tyrians observed the work, learning techniques and asking questions. Some even joined the teams, contributing their own skills and knowledge. Every successful repair was celebrated, not as a sign of competition, but as a shared victory. Lyra often found herself standing on observation platforms, watching the stars and thinking about the galaxy beyond. She knew the Tyrians' journey was far from over. Other species would continue to judge them, continue to reject them. But she also knew something new. They were not alone anymore. Humanity had proven that compassion, intelligence, and courage could exist in one species. And with humans by their side, the Tyrians felt they might survive, even thrive, where once they had only feared. One day, a small human child approached her, holding a simple device that projected tiny holograms. The child pointed to the stars beyond the station. "Do you want to see your home?" the child asked in basic speech, simple yet full of curiosity. Lyra nodded, a smile spreading across her face. "Yes," she said. "We want to see what we have lost and maybe learn how to return one day." It was a quiet moment of discovery, a mixture of memory and hope. Tyrians could see where they had been rejected, but also where they might return, stronger than before. In the evenings, the station held gatherings where humans and Tyroleans could share meals, music, and stories. The sounds were different, but not alien. The Tyroleans began to understand human humor, human courage, and human creativity. They laughed, learned, and for the first time in a long while felt at home. Lyra walked through the domes one evening, watching the children play and the elders discuss ideas with their human counterparts. She felt a deep sense of awe. The galaxy had judged the Tyroleans harshly, had turned its back on them, and yet here they were, alive, learning, and thriving. All because one species, humans, had decided to act when no one else would. She thought about the future. Tyroleans and humans would face challenges together. There would be new lessons, new fears, and perhaps even new enemies. But the foundation had been laid, a partnership built on trust, compassion, and the belief that doing the right thing mattered more than power or politics. The stars beyond the station twinkled quietly, indifferent yet beautiful. But inside the station, the Tyroleans felt a warmth they had not known in years. They were not lost. They were not alone. And for the first time, hope was no longer fragile. It was alive, strong, and growing, nurtured by the humans who had welcomed them when the rest of the galaxy had turned away. Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in the strange, comforting sense of the station. She smiled. Tomorrow would bring new lessons, new challenges, and new discoveries. But tonight she allowed herself to feel gratitude, wonder, and a quiet joy. They had survived the darkness, and now they had found light. Life on the human station had become a rhythm of learning, work, and quiet exploration. The Tyroleans were no longer merely survivors. They were students, explorers, and collaborators. Yet despite the safety and comfort they now enjoyed, a sense of unease lingered in the minds of many. The galaxy was vast and unpredictable, and their past rejections had left a mark that could not be erased easily. The Tyroleans knew that their safety was fragile and that the kindness of humans, while real, could not shield them from every danger. Lyra Nethil moved through the training corridors with measured steps. Around her, Tyrolean engineers were learning to operate human machinery that had once seemed impossibly complex. Energy regulators, navigation systems, and even simple drones were being examined, repaired, and adapted by Tyrolean hands under human supervision. The work was slow at first, but the Tyroleans had a natural precision and curiosity that soon made them adept at handling the machines. "What you are doing is impressive," Commander Elias said, joining Lyra for a quiet walk along the observation deck. "Many of our species would have struggled with these systems for months. You adapt quickly. Some of the greatest power comes from patience, intelligence, and creativity." In one exercise, the Tyroleans had to navigate a simulated asteroid field using damaged starships. At first, panic set in and their movements were hesitant. But with human guidance, they learned to anticipate patterns, communicate efficiently, and act decisively. By the end of the exercise, the Tyroleans were maneuvering with skill and confidence, their fear replaced by determination. Even outside training, the Tyroleans began noticing the quiet resilience of humans in everyday life. They observed how humans worked together to solve minor conflicts, how they shared resources without argument, and how they celebrated small successes as if they mattered just as much as large victories. Tyroleans were fascinated by this combination of pragmatism and kindness. It was a new form of strength, one that did not rely on dominance or intimidation. The station's children became a symbol of this integration. Tyrolean children played alongside human children, exchanging games, ideas, and laughter. They learned to understand each other's languages quickly, often teaching phrases to each other. Music, once strange to Tyroleans, became a bridge between cultures, and simple games involving strategy, observation, and teamwork taught lessons far beyond entertainment. One day, a distress signal arrived from a nearby sector. A small colony of an alien species known as the Arvani faced a threat from a collapsing star system. The humans quickly prepared a rescue operation. Tyroleans watched as humans coordinated fleets, managed logistics, and deployed aid with precision and care. Unlike many other species that would have sent only armed ships, humans prioritized rescue, relief, and stabilization. Lyra felt a swell of respect and awe. Humans were willing to risk themselves for others, not for gain or glory, but because it was the right thing to do. "This is extraordinary," she whispered to Elias. "Even when danger approaches, you choose to help rather than fight." They had spent years watching the galaxy turn away from those in need, yet here was a species that acted with integrity and empathy. For the first time, The Tyrians realized that survival could mean more than avoiding danger. It could mean actively creating good in a universe that often seemed indifferent. When the fleet returned successfully, the Tyrians greeted the humans with amazement and gratitude. The rescued Arvani colony had suffered no casualties, thanks to human efficiency and care. The Tyrians saw firsthand the kind of strength that humans possessed, a strength that combined courage, intelligence, and compassion in ways they had never imagined. This event sparked discussions among the Tyrians about their own role in the galaxy. If humans could act with such integrity and skill, perhaps they could too. Lyra began organizing workshops where Tyrians could learn from human problem-solving methods, adapt them to their own needs, and even innovate. Tyrian minds were quick and methodical, and combined with human inspiration, the results were remarkable. Meanwhile, humans were learning from the Tyrians as well. The fragile species had knowledge of stellar patterns, chemical compounds, and energy manipulation that humans had not yet discovered. Collaborative projects flourished, blending Tyrian theory with human practicality. Together, they created devices to improve life on the station, study distant systems, and even predict environmental hazards with greater accuracy. One evening, as Lyra stood on the observation deck, she watched the sun of a nearby system rise over the station's horizon. The light reflected off the metallic surfaces of ships and buildings, casting long shadows across the domes. Children laughed in the distance, humans and Tyrians playing together, and engineers worked late into the night, collaborating quietly. It was a scene of harmony that she had never imagined possible for her people. And yet, the past of rejection was never far from her thoughts. Lyra knew that the galaxy still judged them, that other species still saw Tyrians as weak or insignificant. But she also knew something important. They had a new ally, a new example of what it meant to survive and thrive in a universe that often valued only power. Humanity had chosen to act when others would not, and that choice had changed everything. The Tyrians began to see a future they had thought impossible. They could rebuild their fleets, re-establish colonies, and explore the galaxy without the constant fear of dismissal. They were learning not just to survive, but to influence, to teach, and to protect others in turn. And humans were there, guiding, collaborating, and sometimes stepping aside to let Tyrians discover their own strength. Lyra spent time teaching the younger Tyrians about leadership, resilience, and courage. She emphasized the lessons she had learned from humans, that true strength lay not in domination or fear, but in the choice to act rightly, in persistence against adversity, and in the willingness to support those who cannot defend themselves. She watched as her people absorbed these ideas, slowly transforming not just in skill but in mindset. One day, a Tyrian elder approached her. "Lyra," he said softly, "I have lived through rejection and despair, but seeing what humans have taught us, I believe our species can survive, even thrive. We are learning more than technology. We are learning how to live with hope, with courage, and with purpose." Tyrian children learned math and music alongside human children. Scientists worked together to explore distant star systems. Engineers repaired ships and constructed new modules with shared skill and knowledge. Even artists collaborated, blending Tyrian light patterns with human sounds to create new forms of expression. It was a fusion of culture, intellect, and compassion. Lyra often walked the quiet corridors at night, reflecting on how far her people had come. From drifting in abandoned ships, rejected and ignored, they were now thriving in a place of care, learning, and collaboration. The experience taught her a vital lesson. It was not enough to survive. Survival was only meaningful when paired with growth, understanding, and connection. Humans had shown them this truth. They had offered not just help, but respect, patience, and guidance. And in doing so, they had reshaped the Tyrians' future. Lyra knew that the galaxy would continue to test them, that challenges and dangers lay ahead. But she also knew something stronger. With humans by their side, and with the lessons they had learned, the Tyrians were no longer fragile. They were capable, creative, and resilient. They could face the universe not with fear, but with determination. As she gazed out at the stars beyond the station, Lyra felt a sense of calm strength. The Tyrians were no longer victims of the galaxy's indifference. They were students of humanity's courage, participants in a partnership that transcended species. And the knowledge that they were not alone, that they had allies who chose compassion over indifference, filled her with hope that had once seemed impossible. The galaxy might still reject them, Lyra thought. It might still underestimate them, ignore them, or dismiss them. But the Tyrians had learned something essential. Rejection was not the end. Survival could be transformed into growth, despair into hope, and isolation into connection. And all of it had begun because humanity had chosen to act when no one else would. In that moment, Lyra felt a quiet determination settle within her. The Tyrians would continue to learn, to grow, and to explore. And when the galaxy saw them again, they would see not weakness, not fragility, but resilience, ingenuity, and courage. The lessons humans had taught them carried into the stars. The station thrummed with life, laughter, learning, and quiet reflection. Tyrians and humans moved together in harmony, shaping a future that had once seemed impossible. And as the stars beyond the station glimmered with distant light, Lyra knew that the journey of integration, discovery, and hope was only beginning. The galaxy might have rejected them, but humanity had not. And that choice, simple yet profound, had changed everything. The galaxy, vast and indifferent, had a way of testing even the strongest bonds. For the Tyrians, now thriving on the human station, the challenge came sooner than they expected. An urgent distress signal arrived from a neighboring system. A massive energy storm, a rare but powerful phenomenon, threatened to engulf several colonies of an alien species called the Sarathi. Entire cities could be destroyed if nothing was done. Lyra Nethel felt a chill of concern as she reviewed the data. The storm was unpredictable, moving faster than models had predicted. Many of the colonies were defenseless, and evacuation by conventional means would be impossible. The Tyrians had seen danger before, but never on this scale. They had survived rejection and hardship, but this was different. It was a test of courage, skill, and collaboration on a grand scale. Commander Elias entered the observation room, his face calm but serious. "We've prepared a response fleet," he said. "We will need both human and Tyrian teams. This is dangerous, but it is also an opportunity to save lives and show what we can do together. Together, we can save them." The human crew guided them, offering advice, encouragement, and support, but they allowed the Tyrians to take initiative, trusting their judgment and skill. Lyra oversaw the final checks, her hands steady despite the tension in the room. "Remember," she said to her team, "the goal is to save lives, not to prove ourselves. Work together, communicate, and trust each other." The first obstacle came quickly. A surge of energy struck one of the smaller human ships, sending it tumbling. Lyra felt a jolt of fear but forced herself to focus. "Divert power to shields, adjust trajectory to compensate," she shouted. Her orders were echoed by human officers, and together the squadron stabilized the ship before any critical damage occurred. Tyrians who had once feared the unpredictability of the galaxy now acted with confidence and precision, their training and collaboration paying off. As they approached the colonies, the fleet began evacuation maneuvers. Human transport ships, guided by Tyrian navigators, moved through corridors of energy to reach the endangered cities. Civilians were lifted aboard with care, shields protecting them from debris and sudden bursts of plasma. The Tyrians, despite their initial fear, coordinated landing zones, medical teams, and communication networks, proving their capability and earning admiration from the human officers. Hours passed like minutes. The storm raged around them, lightning arcs of plasma dancing across the void. The Tyrians worked tirelessly, sometimes alongside humans, sometimes independently, but always in perfect coordination. They recalibrated shields, rerouted power to save damaged ships, and reassured frightened civilians. For the first time, they were not passive observers of the galaxy's cruelty. They were active participants, shaping outcomes and protecting lives. Lyra felt a surge of pride as she watched her people act. The galaxy that had rejected them would never know the full story of this day, but here, in the middle of chaos, Tyrians and humans had become a force greater than the sum of their parts. They were learning what it meant to face danger with courage, skill, and trust. The critical moment came when the storm's eye shifted directly toward the largest city of the Sarathi. Time was running out, and conventional evacuation was impossible. Humans and Tyrians worked together to deploy experimental energy anchors, devices designed to stabilize local gravitational fields and disperse the storm's energy. Tyrian engineers fine-tuned the devices, while humans managed deployment logistics, calculations, and risk management. Every second counted. Lyra's hands flew over her controls, issuing commands to coordinate the deployment. The city below shuddered as the storm struck, buildings trembling under the raw energy. Then, slowly, the anchors activated. Blue energy fields expanded outward, stabilizing the environment just enough to prevent destruction. The storm's force, once unstoppable, was partially contained, allowing evacuation ships to remove the remaining civilians safely. When the storm finally passed, the fleet regrouped. The colonies were damaged but not destroyed. Countless lives had been saved. Tyrians and humans alike let out a collective sigh of relief, some leaning against consoles, others embracing those nearby. The Tyrians looked at the humans with new respect and gratitude. They had learned not just courage, but the meaning of partnership and shared purpose. As the fleet returned to the station, Lyra reflected on the events. The Tyrians had faced danger as a unified force, their fear replaced by determination and skill. They had learned that survival was not simply about avoiding harm, but about acting, contributing, and trusting in others. Humanity had shown them the way, and they had risen to the challenge. Back on the station, celebrations were muted but sincere. Tyrians and humans shared stories of heroism, improvisation, and teamwork. Children asked questions, and elders praised the ingenuity of both species. Lyra walked through the domes, observing the interactions, and felt a sense of profound fulfillment. Her people had grown stronger, not just physically or mentally, but in spirit. The galaxy might still underestimate the Tyrians, but now they possessed something the galaxy could not ignore: courage, skill, and allies who would never abandon them. Humans had taught them that true strength came not from dominance, but from knowledge, compassion, and the willingness to act when others would not. Lyra met with Commander Elias in the station's council chamber. "Your people have shown remarkable resilience," he said. "They adapted quickly and acted decisively. You are no longer just survivors, you are partners. Then perhaps the galaxy will see the Tyrians differently in the future. But even if it does not, you have proven something important. Rejection is not the end. Action, collaboration, and courage can change outcomes, even when the odds seem impossible." Some were surprised, some skeptical, but most could not deny the result. Tyrians had acted with humans to save thousands of lives. For the first time, they were recognized not for fragility, but for skill, intelligence, and bravery. It was a beginning of a new reputation, one built on action and integrity rather than fear and dismissal. The Tyrians themselves were transformed. Children who had once hidden behind the safety of adults now ran confidently, exploring and experimenting. Elders, who had doubted the galaxy's potential for fairness, now spoke of possibility and hope. The culture of rejection that had defined them for generations was slowly replaced by one of collaboration, courage, and learning. Lyra reflected on the journey her people had taken. From drifting helplessly in abandoned ships to thriving alongside humans, the Tyrians had not only survived, they had grown. They had learned to act with skill, to think creatively, and to trust in themselves and others. And all of it had been possible because one species had chosen to extend a hand when the galaxy had refused. The station hummed with life as humans and Tyrians continued their work. Ships were repaired, systems improved, and knowledge shared. The bond between the two species had deepened, not just as allies, but as teachers and learners, friends and collaborators. Each day brought new opportunities, new lessons, and new discoveries. Lyra often returned to the observation deck at night, looking out at the stars. The galaxy was still vast and unpredictable, but now she saw it differently. Rejection had shaped her people, but it had not defined them. They had survived, learned, and grown. Humanity had shown them that hope, courage, and action were as powerful as any weapon. And with that knowledge, the Tyrians would face the future with confidence, not fear. As the station lights glowed softly against the darkness of space, Lyra knew that the journey was far from over. The galaxy would continue to challenge them, test them, and sometimes dismiss them. But the Tyrians had discovered something stronger than fear: the strength to act, the courage to care, and the wisdom to trust in themselves and those who chose to stand with them. The galaxy might have rejected them once, but humanity had welcomed them. That welcome had not only saved lives, it had changed the course of a species, shaping the Tyrians into something greater than they had ever imagined. And as Lyra watched the stars twinkle in the distance, she understood the truth that had carried them through so much. The right choice, made with courage and compassion, could reshape destiny itself. For the first time, the Tyrians felt the galaxy could no longer define them. They had learned, they had acted, and they had survived. And now, with humans by their side, they would thrive.